Greetings, fellow listeners. I'm here to introduce to you our commendable speakers for today, who will gladly enlighten us about the topic of oppression and power, in which we should all be deeply interested about. Our first speaker is none other than yours truly, Miss Hannah Krista A. Pula, accompanied by Miss Mia R. Paderes and by Miss Rhea Venice B. Garcia. In this TED Talk, the speakers will tackle and expound about the ways in which oppression and power intertwined with each other, explain the ideas and theories surrounding these topics, and determine the tactics employed by community psychologists and their allies in the fight against oppression and power. Everyone, let us all give them a round of applause.
Today we celebrate, we commemorate, and we remember to remind us about the rich history and the urge to keep on fighting for equality. Good day, everybody. I am Hannah. In today's society, a lot of us deal with many forms of oppression in our daily lives. But unfortunately, different groups of people are more oppressed than others. Oppression frequently appears when individuals in positions of authority try to hold on to their privileges and control at the expense of others. And these dominant groups exert control over target groups by limiting their rights, their freedom, and their access to resources such as healthcare, education, employment, and housing. Now let's talk about privileges. In oppression, there's a hierarchy of social status in which we have dominant groups and non-dominant groups, or what we call target groups. But did you know that whether you are aware of it or not, that most of us find ourselves affected by these privileges and oppression? And all of these privileges are connected with oppression because all of these social statuses that we encounter affects and influence our lives. I must admit that even I myself am aware about most of my oppression but not of my privileges. And truth be told, a lot of people are more focused on their oppression rather than their privileges that they actually have. They do not see their advances among other people. And they tend to take those privileges for granted because they did not ask for it. This creates oppression towards other people, and it has an impact on our identities and social interactions with others. By this fact, we see how socially constructed categories affect systematic inequalities. There are a multitude causes that give rise to oppression, such as political, historical, cultural, and economic dynamics. This results in many different forms of systems of oppression, including racism, classism, sexism, in which some of these topics will be expounded throughout this discussion. Over the last 500 years, the colonial matrix of power has four interrelated domains, which are the control of economy, the control of authority, the control in gender and sexuality, and the control of subjectivity and knowledge. And these four interrelated domains has been and are one of the primary sources of oppression. So the colonial mentality has created the perception of ethnic and cultural inferiorities and the form of internalized racial oppression, the thinking that some races are more superior than others. This is why here in our country, the colonial mentality is considered as a direct consequence of the Philippines' long history of colonialism. Therefore, the decoloniality theory creates a framework that aims to recover marginalized voices and to emphasize critical consciousness rather than cultivate ignorance of oppression, a focus on breaking ideologies of status quo realities in development of models that support collective action.
What if I told you that you are oppressed even if you don't know it? Imagine walking into a classroom feeling like you don't belong and like your voice doesn't even matter. That feeling on weight on your shoulders, that's what oppression feels like. I am Mia Paderes, and today I want to delve into the psychological implication of oppression, exploring its intricate layers and impact on our identities and behaviors. Oppression is when a group of people is systematically disadvantaged or harmed by another group of people who have more power and privilege. It can take many forms, such as racism, sexism, homophobia, and so on. Oppression can also be intersectional. For example, a woman of color may face more oppression than a white woman of color because she belongs to two marginalized groups. Oppression is not only a social and political problem, but it is also a psychological one. Oppression can have a profound impact on mental health and well being. One of the psychological effects of oppression is the erasure and removal of instant cultural identities. For instance, indigenous peoples worldwide have their languages and customs destroyed. Another one is the internalization of negative group identities and self-esteem. For example, people of color often face racism that tells them they're inferior because of their appearance. A third psychological effect of oppression is the adoption of avoidance reaction and self-destructive behaviors. For example, women may experience sexism that makes them feel unsafe and depressed. These effects harm individuals and society, affecting mental and physical health, relationship, and opportunities. As a student at a university, we have a unique opportunity and responsibility to engage in the process of transformation. We have a diverse and dynamic community of peers and mentors that we can support and inspire us. And we have the potential and power to make a difference. So, what is power? How do we define it, measure it, and use it? In community psychology, which explores how individuals interact with their environments for positive change, power is multifaceted. Power comes in various forms, including power over, power to, and power from. When we say power over, it is associated with authority and coercion, whether used for good or ill. Power to emphasizes agency, creativity, and collaboration, empowering oneself and others through skills and shared goals. Power from challenges existing structures, asserts rights, and resists oppression. These forms interact, sometimes reinforcing or conflicting with each other. Empowerment is about increasing power to and power from while reducing the exposure to power over. It operates at individual, group, and community levels. Viewed through psychological and political lenses, Rappaport highlights actual power and perceived power that emphasize their interrelation and importance. Empowerment extends beyond the individual to encompass social dynamics. It is rooted in social power, which shapes behaviors and outcomes. This power manifests through control over resources, participation, and consciousness. Control over resources involves the ability to allocate and withhold material and symbolic assets, influencing societal power dynamics and creating inequalities. While the control over participation dictates who get to engage in decision-making processes, shaping representation and inclusivity in society. Control over consciousness molds collective belief and attitudes, perpetuating stereotypes and justifying existing power structures. Understanding and addressing this dimension of social power is crucial for fostering genuine empowerment and creating for more equitable societies.
A power that transcends mere communication and shapes the very essence of our existence. Welcome to Language is Power. Language, when used to marginalize, stereotype, or belittle others, becomes a formidable weapon of oppression. Throughout history, we've seen how certain words and phrases have been weaponized to maintain systems of power and control. From derogatory terms used to justify slavery and colonization, to dehumanizing labels that perpetuate discrimination against marginalized communities, language has been wielded as a tool to silence, subjugate, and disempower. But here's the remarkable thing about language. It also has the power to liberate and empower. When we reclaim language, when we challenge oppressive narratives, and when we use words to uplift and affirm, we can catalyze profound social change. Consider the civil rights movement, where leaders like Nelson Mandela used the power of words to inspire millions and dismantle the chains of segregation. Or the LGBTQ+ rights movement, where reclaiming terms like queer transformed them from insults into badges of pride. In the face of oppression, language becomes an act of resistance. It's through naming our experiences, sharing our stories, and amplifying marginalized voices that we challenge the status quo and demand justice. Whether it's through poetry, protest chants, or social media hashtags, language becomes a rallying cry for change. It emboldens us to stand up against injustice and strive for a more equitable world. As we navigate the complexities of oppression and power, let us remember the transformative potential of language. Let us wield our words with intention, using them not to diminish, but to empower. For in our collective voices lies the key to breaking chains, challenging systems of oppression, and creating a future where all are truly free. As we reflect on the immense power of language, it's crucial to acknowledge another powerful force that has deeply influenced societies worldwide: colonialism. Colonialism wasn't just about the conquest of lands, it was about the assertion of power, domination, and control over indigenous peoples and their resources. For centuries, colonial powers imposed their cultures, languages, and ideologies on colonized territories, leaving deep scars on the fabric of society that persists to this day. Economic exploitation lay at the heart of colonialism, as resources were extracted and labor exploited for the benefit of colonial powers, perpetuating cycles of poverty and inequality. Cultural erasure and identity loss were also integral to colonialism, as indigenous languages, traditions, and knowledge systems were suppressed or destroyed in the name of assimilation. Yet, despite centuries of oppression, indigenous peoples around the world have shown remarkable resilience and resistance, reclaiming their voices, cultures, and narratives. It is time for us to confront the legacies of colonialism, to listen to marginalized voices, and to work towards a future rooted in justice, equality, and solidarity. Let us recognize the enduring impact of colonialism on our world today and commit ourselves to building a future where power is shared, voices are heard, and dignity is upheld for all.
As I start to realize that oppression and power are not separate entities but rather two sides of the same coin, I realize that those who hold power are often just a product of their environment as well as those who are oppressed. They are also shaped by the systems of oppression that governs our society, and their power is often used to uphold those same systems that benefits them at the expense of others. Those who are in positions of power have responsibilities to use their influence to uplift those who are marginalized and oppressed, to challenge the system that keeps others down, and to work towards a more equitable and just society for all. As a young activist and advocate for social change, I have always been passionate about dismantling oppression and power structures that uphold inequality in our society. I believe that action strategies are key to shifting the balance of power and creating a more equal society for all. Action strategies by engaging in education, community organizing, direct action, and building solidarity, we can work towards a more and just equitable world for our society. In the end, we must understand that oppression and power are not just fixed or immutable forces, but rather complex and dynamic elements of human society that is shifting and evolving.
Liberation is the process of breaking free from oppressive structures and systems that limit individual freedoms and hinder collective progress. It's about empowering communities to assert their agency, reclaim their dignity, and reshape their own destinies. It is not a one-time event. Liberation is an ongoing journey of resistance, resilience, and transformation. It's about challenging the status quo, dismantling unjust systems, and building a more just and equitable society for all. Throughout history, we've seen the power of community in driving movements for liberation. When individuals come together, when they unite in solidarity and support one another, they become a formidable force for change. Together, we can challenge oppressive structures, amplify marginalized voices, and create spaces where everyone can thrive. Liberation is not something that can be achieved in isolation. It requires collective action and collaboration. At the core of liberation are principles such as equality, justice, and empowerment. This principle serves as guiding lights on our journey towards a more liberated future. By embodying these principles in our actions and interactions, we create communities where every individual is valued, respected, and given the opportunity to reach their full potential. As we continue, let us keep the vision of liberation at the forefront of our minds. Now let's turn our attention to another critical aspect of dismantling oppression: decoloniality. Decoloniality is more than just a buzzword. It's a powerful framework for unraveling the deep-seated legacy of oppression left by centuries of colonialism. Colonialism, as we know, imposed domination, exploitation, and cultural erasure upon indigenous people and their lands. Decoloniality seeks to dismantle these oppressive structures and foster healing and justice. One of the central tenets of decoloniality is challenging colonial narratives and perspectives that continue to shape our understanding of the world. By amplifying indigenous voices, reclaiming lost histories, and acknowledging the ongoing impacts of colonization, we begin to deconstruct the pervasive myths and stereotypes that uphold systems of power and privilege. Decoloniality also involves restoring and centering indigenous knowledge, traditions, and practices that have been marginalized or suppressed. By valuing diverse ways of knowing and being, we honor the wisdom of indigenous peoples and cultivate greater respect for the interconnectedness of all living beings in the natural world. Furthermore, decoloniality emphasizes the importance of building solidarity across communities affected by colonialism and other forms of oppression. By recognizing our shared struggles and standing in solidarity with one another, we strengthen our collective resolve to dismantle oppressive systems and create a more just and equitable world.
Now, let's talk about a concept that is very important for understanding ourselves and the world around us. It is called intersectionality. Intersectionality, coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, illuminates the interconnectedness of our identities and experiences. It underscores that our lives are shaped by multiple factors such as race, gender, class, sexuality, and age. Understanding intersectionality helps us recognize the diverse challenges and privileges individuals encounter. By acknowledging our biases and listening to diverse perspectives, we foster empathy and solidarity. In our daily lives, we can apply intersectionality by critically examining assumptions, amplifying marginalized voices, and striving to dismantle systematic inequalities. So it is not just a theory, but a practice. It is a way of seeing, thinking, and acting that can help us to understand ourselves and others better, and to make the world a better place for everyone. Now, let's talk about a concept that may seem complex but is actually relevant to our daily lives. It is called power and oppression, and it is all around us. Imagine walking through the halls of your university, feeling the weight of labels and categories pressing down on you. You're not just as a student, you're defined by your race, your gender, and your sexual orientation. These labels can feel suffocating, trapping us in the boxes that society has built for us. Let's take a step back and think about how power and oppression operate in our world. It's not just about individuals, it's about systems and structures that keep certain groups down while lifting others up. Think about colonialism, the sexism, the racism, and all the ism that permeate our society. As a college student myself, I've felt the impact of these labels firsthand, whether it's being judged based on my ethnicity or my gender. I know how it feels to be confined by society's expectations, but I've also seen the power of language to break down the barriers. These concepts aren't just theories, they are daily lives. Look at the Chin X student movement. They've challenged oppression and made a difference. So how do we fight power and oppression? Through social movements like LGBTQ+, Me Too, and Black Lives Matter. They raised awareness and changed attitudes. Another way is through education and conscious raising. We question society's labels and promote equality through language reframing. So as we go about our lives and at the university, let's remember that we are not just students. Let's be agents of change by challenging oppression, promoting liberation, and making our university and our world a better place. In conclusion, we have learned that oppression and power are complex and interrelated concepts that affect the health and well-being of communities. We have explored some of the theories and framework that help us understand the dynamics of oppression and power. such as intersectionality, critical consciousness, and liberation psychology. We have also identified some of the strategies that community psychologists and allies use to address oppression and power, such as participatory action research, empowerment, and social justice. These strategies aim to challenge the status quo, amplify the voices of the oppressed, and promote collective action for social change. So thank you for your attention and participation. We hope this speech has inspired you to think critically and creatively about oppression and power to take action for a better world.